The warp was never silent. It breathed, screamed, and wept in endless cacophony. Yet tonight, something different stirred within its crimson tides. A whisper, a giggle. At first, the demons mistook it for madness, which of course it was, but not the kind they knew. This laughter carried rhythm, mischief, and melody. It echoed through the Imperium like a cosmic joke, only one being understood. The seas of raw emotion convulsed. Rivers of despair bent upward, curling into spirals of color. Slaanesh's domain flickered in confusion as hues of violet and emerald graffiti spread across its obsidian skis. The laughter grew, rolling, swelling, rippling through the realm like thunder disguised as a child's joke. Even Khorne's blood-soaked throne trembled. His demons stopped mid-slaughter, their roars fading into uneasy silence. The sound didn't belong here, yet it ruled everything it touched. From the heart of a dying star adrift in the warp, a figure emerged. Thin, angular, wrapped in shadow and impossible light. His suit shimmered with every color and none at all. His smile, impossibly wide, cut through reality like a blade made of mirth and malice. The demons recoiled, for in him they sensed something they could not consume: chaos without worship, cruelty without purpose. He bowed to the void, hands spread in theatrical grace. "Ladies and gentlemen," he whispered to no one, "I've arrived at the greatest comedy in the galaxy." Around him, the warp responded like an eager audience. Stars collapsed into whoopee cushions of light. Rivers of corrupted thought twisted into ribbons of laughter. The howling of the damned began to change, not screams anymore, but laughter so distorted it shredded souls into confetti. Tzeentch's crystal labyrinth flickered uncertainly. A new pattern was forming, one that even he hadn't foreseen. The architect of fate frowned, for the joke was not his. The newcomer drifted through madness as though waltzing through smoke. His shoes clicked against nothing, echoing across eons. He stopped at a mirror of flesh and flame, one of Slaanesh's demonic courtiers frozen mid-seduction. With a tilt of his head, the stranger painted a smile across its face with a single touch. The demon shrieked, its form collapsing, reforming, and then bursting into laughter before disintegrating into glittering dust. "Now that's comedy," the figure clapped, delighted. In the distance, demons gathered, legions of snarling, wretched things. They surrounded him like predators circling prey, but their confidence faltered when he smiled wider. "Oh, come on," he chuckled, "don't be so grimdark." A sound followed, not a weapon, but a simple snap of his fingers. The legion froze, then their faces began to twist, skin peeling upward into monstrous grins. The laughter spread, unstoppable, infectious. The air itself seemed to join in, echoing his mirth. For the first time in eternity, the warp hesitated. It did not understand this being. It knew rage, desire, decay, deceit, but not humor. Humor had never been part of its anatomy. Yet here it was, invading every corner, every scream, every tear. The laws of chaos bent like rubber. Time forgot how to move straight. The Imperium's colors began to swirl together into something new, something playful, terrifying, and absurd. The figure crouched on an invisible ledge above infinity, staring down at the storm below. "You're all so serious," he whispered, eyes glinting with lunacy. "Whole universe out there full of gods and monsters, and not a single good punchline." He laughed again, softer this time, almost tender. And with that laughter, the warp began to reshape itself around him, a stage, a circus, a cosmic comedy club built from madness itself. Somewhere deep within the Empyrean, a voice as old as creation murmured in unease. The Chaos Gods, for all their pride, could not name this thing. He was not demon, not god, not man. He was concept, laughter made flesh, mockery given form. Even they felt its danger, for humor stripped away reverence, and chaos thrived on reverence. The warp trembled beneath its own absurdity. The figure tilted his head, listening to distant screams bleeding through the veil into real space, the echoes of humanity's endless suffering. He grinned wider, eyes alight with a mad idea. "Billions of sad little faces," he murmured. "Let's turn those frowns upside down." And then he vanished, dissolving into the immaterium like a cruel punchline. The ripples of his laughter followed, slicing through the warp's fabric, reaching out toward the stars, the planets, the minds of mortals. Far above holy Terra, the astronomicon flickered for a heartbeat, just a blink. But in that blink, every psyker in the Imperium heard it, a faint giggle echoing inside their skulls. Something had crossed over. It began as a whisper in the static, a faint sound beneath the constant droning of the Imperium's machines, a laugh, faint, human, yet wrong in its rhythm. The tech priests of the Astronomicon dismissed it as interference from the warp's tides, but then the laughter persisted, bleeding into every Vox channel, every picked feed, every shrine hymn broadcast to the masses of holy Terra. It was not one voice anymore, it was thousands, overlapping, chuckling in unison. At first, people ignored it. Laughter was alien to this world of eternal duty and devotion, but then it grew louder, louder than the prayers, louder than the engines. In the great hives of Terra, billions of citizens found themselves twitching, lips curling upward against their will. The air was thick with static mirth. On the street screens of the administratum spires, the imperial creed was replaced by a single phrase flashing endlessly. "Why so serious, Emperor?" The Adeptus Mechanicus scrambled to purge the system, chanting binaric prayers, sanctifying code lines with blessed oils. But it spread faster than data corruption, leaping from cogitator to cogitator, from servoskull to vox tower. The laugh became a virus, the virus a plague. And those infected didn't die, they laughed. Laughed until lungs burst, until blood streamed from eyes, until faces froze in rictus grins. In the underhives, the madness turned into celebration. Desperate workers painted their faces in white ash and blood, calling themselves the Smiling Faithful. They sang hymns twisted with humor, parodies of imperial litanies. "The Emperor protects," they cried, "but the Joker entertains." For the first time in living memory, the lower hives danced not for joy, but for hysteria. Inquisitor Helene of the Ordo Hereticus arrived to contain the outbreak. Her stormtroopers moved through the dark, sealing off sectors, purging civilians who refused to stop laughing. But the contagion was not in the air or water, it was in meaning itself. Every attempt to suppress it only spread it further. The laughter mocked them. Leaking through Vox units, even when power was cut. It seemed to have no source, until Helene found a message carved into a steel wall with a knife. "Smile, it's just the end of the world." The Inquisitor stared, trembling, as the sound of distant laughter echoed through the corridors, human and machine intertwined. The server skulls above her head turned their lenses toward her and began to giggle in mechanical tones. "Purge the code," she screamed, firing her bolt pistol into the walls, but even the gun's recoil seemed to chuckle. She fled upward, toward the cathedrals of the ecclesiarchy, praying that faith could silence madness. But faith, too, was infected. The ministorum priests stood upon their pulpits with faces painted like jesters, their incense burners replaced with balloons. They preached a new revelation that the emperor himself had learned to laugh. The great joke, they called it, the holy hysteria. Congregations filled with manic joy, eyes wild, voices shaking with unholy cheer. They tore off their relic chains and smeared their faces in gold paint, declaring that suffering was only the setup for the galaxy's greatest punchline. From orbit, the Adeptus Astra Telepathica detected psychic waves radiating from Terra, waves not of pain or faith, but mirth, billions of minds sinking to one shared emotion. Psychers began to combust spontaneously, their skulls bursting into confetti-like vapor as they heard the sound of endless applause. Across the throne world, chaos grew, not through rebellion or heresy, but through humor. Deep beneath the imperial palace, the laughter reached the forbidden vaults of the Sigillites' archives. Data slates once sealed since the Horus heresy flickered to life, their screens displaying a single image, a white face, a red grin, green hair slicked back with blood. The same face appeared on banners, on cogitators, even carved into the very walls by unseen hands. In the Hall of Eternity, where the custards stand vigil over the golden throne, the laughter began to echo faintly. A ripple of unease passed among the Emperor's silent guardians. One of them, Tribune Valerian, felt something he hadn't felt in millennia, fear. He turned to his brothers, voice low and trembling. "Do you hear that?" They did. It was faint, like an echo from another world, but it was there. Laughter, soft, intimate, as if whispered directly into the Emperor's ear. And then, for a heartbeat, every candle in the hall flickered blue and green. In the astropathic towers, the Emperor's psychic light, the Astronomicon, dimmed for a fraction of a second. Every ship in the Segmentum Solar reported it. The Emperor's radiance, the beacon of humanity's survival, had faltered. Tech priests fell to their knees, weeping. High lords screamed in panic, but deep within the palace, unseen by all, a single droplet of blood fell from the Emperor's lips, and as it struck the gilded floor, his ancient face, dead for 10,000 years, twitched. The corners of his mouth curled upward. The most sacred chamber in the galaxy filled with a sound that had not been heard since the dawn of the Imperium. It began with a single world, then spread like a painted wildfire. In the segmentum obscurus, the hive world of Gendros turned crimson and gold overnight. Hollow banners unfurled across its megaspires, bearing the same grinning symbol that had haunted Terra. Voxcasters blared manic circus music across the wastelands as the laughter returned, not as a whisper this time, but as an anthem. The Joker's gospel had gone galactic. The sky above Gendros burned in impossible colors, clouds swirling green and violet, lightning dancing in the shape of jagged smiles. Manufactorums bled confetti instead of smoke. Streets once drowned in ash now glowed with light, but not hope's kind, the cruel, mocking glow of a carnival that never ends. The people no longer wept. They laughed until they tore their throats apart. Laughter was no longer a choice, it was worship. When the Imperium's armies landed to restore order, they found no enemy, only painted faces. Children danced around burning tanks, singing hymns to the great clown. Servitors juggled skulls. Imperial guardsmen who tried to enforce silence found their own lips curling upward, hands trembling as they fought the urge to laugh. Some tore off their helmets, painting crude smiles across their visors. Others simply shot themselves to make the laughter stop. The disease was not biological, it was spiritual. The warp itself had been infected. In the eye of Terra, the Chaos gods took notice. Khorne watched from his brass throne as his warriors paused mid-slaughter to giggle like madmen. Each swing of a chain axe was punctuated by deranged laughter. "What trickery is this?" the blood god roared, but his voice was drowned by a chorus of mirth. Demons laughed even as they bled. The battlefield became a circus of violence, a parody of rage. In Nurgle's garden, the Plaguefather smiled sadly as his children danced among the rotting vines, painting smiles on the bloated faces of the dead. "Oh dear," he chuckled, "someone's having fun without me." His flies sang in offbeat rhythms, a grotesque harmony of joy and decay. Even Slaanesh paused mid-ecstasy, bewildered by this new flavor of chaos, joy without pleasure, madness without desire. "He's beautiful," Slaanesh whispered, gazing into the warp's reflection of the Joker's grin. But Tzeentch, ever the schemer, felt true fear. His endless foresight shattered like glass, his patterns dissolving into nonsense. For the first time in eternity, the Lord of Change could not predict what came next. His labyrinth cracked, and from within the chaos of his realm came a sound that no demon of his had ever uttered: laughter. Not mocking, not cruel, but genuinely amused. "Impossible," Tzeentch hissed. "He exists outside the plan." The Joker's influence did not spread through worship, but through irony. The more the Chaos gods tried to resist, the funnier it became. Demons of every legion found themselves caught in farce, Khorne's champions slipping on their own blood, Nurgle's children popping like balloons, Slaaneshi dancers tripping mid-ecstasy. Each tragedy turned comic, every scream became a punchline. And in the heart of it all, a stage, a literal one, floating in the void, stitched from fragments of ruined worlds. Upon it stood him, the Joker, the jester of the end times. He wore no armor, no crown, only that eternal grin. Around him, the gods' laughter echoed as thunder. "Now this," he said, raising his arms to the cosmos, "this is entertainment." He looked out across the Imperium, as if staring directly into the camera of the universe itself. "You see, folks," he said softly, "chaos has always been about passion, about emotion, rage, lust, disease, magic. But what about fun?" he chuckled. "You've all been taking yourselves far too seriously." Behind him, stars popped like firecrackers. Planets turned into juggling balls, orbiting in comedic rhythm. The warp twisted into a grotesque smile, stretching across the galaxy's psychic fabric. Ships traveling through the Imperium saw that smile shimmering in the void, staring back at them. Some crews went mad. Others began laughing and never stopped. The Inquisition's response was immediate and brutal. Exterminatus orders burned across a dozen systems, worlds turned to ash to prevent the laughter plague from spreading. But it didn't matter. Every detonation, every desperate act of control only made the laughter louder. Even death was a joke now. Even fire had a sense of humor. Across the segmentum solar, cults rose by the thousands, the painted choirs, the harlequin apostles, the comedians of the end. They wore colors forbidden by the ecclesiarchy and preached a gospel of absurdity. Life is tragedy, death is punchline, chaos is the stage. They did not seek victory, only amusement. Their leader's symbol, a red smile carved into a white circle, replaced the imperial aquila on banners and armor alike. Among them walked imperial soldiers, chaos worshippers, and civilians, all equal in their deranged devotion. The galaxy's hierarchies crumbled in laughter. Planets once divided by millennia of hatred now sang the same tune, united not by faith, but by farce. And somewhere between reality and nightmare, a golden throne flickered in the dark. The Emperor's psychic light still fought to hold the galaxy together, but the laughter gnawed at its edges. His loyal custodians prayed in silence, terrified to look upon their master, for some claimed to have seen his eyes open just for a second. And in those eyes was joy. From the depths of the warp, the Joker tilted his head, smiling as if he'd just heard the universe's best joke. "See," he whispered, voice echoing across every world, every mind, every soul. "Everyone's laughing now." He raised a hand toward Terra, the stage lights of the galaxy focused on him. But the best act still to come. In the cold, dark vaults of Luna, deep beneath the domes of the Ordo Malleus, silence reigned, broken only by the flicker of hololiths displaying endless reports of madness. Entire worlds lost to laughter, planetary governors painting their faces, ecclesiarchs preaching joy as heresy, and in every transmission, somewhere in the background, that same haunting voice whispered through static. "You ever dance with the warp by starlight?" Inquisitor Lord Varax stared at the projection, his mind a fortress of discipline honed through centuries of horror. He had faced demons, rogue psychers, and even the whispers of the dark gods themselves, but never something so amused. The laughter wasn't corruption in the usual sense, it was infection by irony. No sigil, no spell, no summoning, just a joke so profound it rewrote sanity. Around him, the chamber's sanctified servitors began to twitch, their vox grills spitting bursts of static laughter. The sigils carved into the walls glowed faintly, rearranging themselves into a grin. The holy wardings that had repelled demons for millennia bent like melting wax. Varax drew his bolt pistol and fired into the nearest servitor. Its skull exploded in a shower of incense and metal shards, and from the smoking ruin came a distorted chuckle. He turned to his acolytes. "Seal the vaults. No one enters or leaves. The laughter is not sound, it's contagion." But even as he spoke, one of them began to smile. Blood trickled from her mouth as she whispered, "My lord, it's funny, because we thought we were the judges." Her laughter spread through the room like wildfire. One by one, inquisitors, scribes, and tech priests succumbed, some giggling hysterically, others sobbing as they laughed. Varax screamed orders, firing round after round, but nothing stopped it. The sound grew deafening. The sigils on the walls now fully transformed, a mural of a white face with green eyes and a red grin stretching from floor to ceiling. The Emperor's symbol, the twin-headed eagle, peeled from the wall, feathers falling like ash, and beneath it, words formed in blood. "The punchline is you." Across the galaxy, the Inquisition, once the sharpest blade of the Imperium, began to fracture. The Ordo Hereticus turned upon itself, accusing one another of harboring the laughing heresy. The Ordo Xenos declared all human minds contaminated and began purges that consumed entire systems. And the Ordo Malleus, guardians against demonic corruption, found their own libraries rewriting themselves. Tomes that once described chaos gods now spoke of the comedian beyond the veil. Inquisitor Helene, survivor of Terra's madness, stood before the conclave of 9, her voice raw with exhaustion. "This is not a god," she rasped. "It's worse, it's comedy, and comedy kills fear, even the fear that holds our faith together." But her words fell upon silence. Then, from somewhere in the chamber, came the unmistakable sound of laughter. It started with one inquisitor, then 2, then all 9. Their faces cracked into smiles as they turned toward Helene, eyes glassy, teeth bared in mirthless joy. "You were right," one said between giggles. "It's hilarious." Helene's scream echoed as the lights turned emerald. By the next day, the entire lunar conclave was gone, their fortress reduced to ashes, the void around it echoing faint laughter through the vox. The Ordo's archives broadcast one final message across the Imperium before they burned, a live transmission of the Joker sitting on a throne made from rosette badges and inquisitorial seals. He tapped the microphone, grinning. "Hiya, Inquisitors," he said, his voice echoing through every loyal ship and shrine world. "You spent 10,000 years chasing heretics, and the big joke, you never looked in the mirror." He leaned forward, the light flickering across his pale face. "All those robes, all that fire, all that screaming, and none of you realized you were already insane." Behind him, the inquisitorial fortress monastery of Nemesis Prime erupted into color explosions, forming laughing faces across the void. As the camera feed crackled, the Joker leaned back and whispered, "The Emperor had his Inquisition. I have mine." And from the flames stepped figures, laughing silhouettes clad in black armor painted with mocking smiles. In their hands, weapons crackled with corrupted psychic energy. They were not human anymore, but not demons either. Something in between, Inquisitors reborn as jesters of judgment. They called themselves the Ordo Ridiculum, the holy order of the final joke. Where they walked, reality bent. Their laughter replaced screams. Planets that resisted were not destroyed, they were rewritten, turned into parodies of imperial order. Cathedrals became theaters, chapels became stages, and on every world touched by their presence, one phrase appeared, carved in flame. "Laugh now, confess later." In orbit around holy Terra, a psychic storm brewed, emerald and violet lightning crashing across the void. Ships of the Imperial Navy struggled to maintain control as the laughter reached even them. Admirals tore off their insignia, howling with delight as they steered their vessels into one another in suicidal choreography. Deep within the Golden Palace, the High Lords of Terra held their final meeting. Their faces pale, their voices trembling, they argued over what to call this madness. "A new god," said one. "A demonic contagion," said another, but none dared speak the truth that burned behind their eyes. The Emperor's throne room was no longer silent. The laughter was seeping through the walls, now faint, distant, but constant. Custodians reported hallucinations of a pale man sitting on the Emperor's steps, legs crossed, idly flipping a coin. No recorders captured him, yet they all described the same grin. And then the laughter stopped. For the first time in months, the Imperium fell into eerie quiet. No Vox signals, no transmissions, no screams, only silence. That silence lasted 13 seconds. Then all across the galaxy, every screen, every data slate, every astropathic feed lit up with the same image. The Joker, staring straight ahead, eyes bright, smile unwavering. "Knock, knock," he said softly. A pause. And from the throne world to the Eye of Terra, a single thought echoed through every soul, mortal, demon, and god alike. The Golden Palace of Terra had always been a fortress of silence, the mausoleum of a god who had not spoken in 10,000 years. But now that silence was cracked. Something moved beneath the marble halls and golden ceilings, an undercurrent of sound so faint and unreal that even the custodians dared not name it. It wasn't the hum of ancient machinery or the whisper of psalms. It was laughter. It started deep below the surface, within the labyrinth of vaults that housed the Golden Throne's machinery. Servitors twitched as they maintained the systems that sustained the Emperor's life. Electra priests chanted code prayers, their mechanical voices trembling as static giggles erupted from their voximeters. And in the holy light of the Astronomicon, the psychic beacon of the Imperium flickered, its once pure radiance now pulsing with hues of green and violet. In the Sanctum Imperialis, the High Lords gathered before the sealed doors of the throne. They argued in frantic whispers about reports of custodians smiling in their sleep, about the laughter echoing through the Vox lines, about the Astronomicons dimming. Lord Commander Guilliman, reborn son of the Emperor, stood silent at the center. His eyes burned with fury and disbelief. "I have fought demons. I have faced the warp itself," he said, voice shaking, "but I have never seen it laugh." Then the lights went out. One by one, the gilded lamps that lined the throne hall extinguished. The Emperor's chamber, the holiest place in existence, fell into darkness. The only illumination came from the glow of the Astronomicon, pulsing now like a heartbeat, green and gold, red and purple. The custodians raised their halberds, their armor trembling as they heard it, the unmistakable sound of someone clapping. Slow, mocking applause. A voice drifted through the darkness, smooth, playful, impossibly clear. "What a show," it said. 10,000 years of tragedy, betrayal, faith, sacrifice, and no one even smiled once. The custodians moved as one, forming a circle around the throne. Guilliman stepped forward, drawing his sword, the Emperor's own blade gleaming with divine light. "Show yourself," he commanded. And then he did. From the air itself, he stepped forth, the same figure that had haunted the warp, now manifest in the most sacred chamber of mankind. Pale skin, crimson grin, a purple coat that shimmered with impossible colors, the Joker, but not as flesh, as idea, as distortion. His outline wavered like he was half dream, half reflection. He strolled across the golden floor as if he belonged there, clapping as he approached the throne. "Quite the dad you've got, Robbie," he said, tilting his head toward Guilliman. "Sitting here for 10 millennia, holding the galaxy together with sheer willpower. I mean," he spread his arms, laughing softly, "that's dedication. But come on, even gods deserve a break." "Silence," Guilliman roared, lunging forward. His sword cleaved through the air, but it passed straight through the Joker's body, scattering his image into swirling laughter before reforming again behind him. "Oh, I love when you do that," the Joker chuckled. "So serious, so noble, you remind me of someone I used to know. Big chin, no sense of humor." The custodians fired, volleys of golden light tearing through the hall. The Joker danced through them, his movements absurdly graceful, like a performer on a stage. Each bolt that struck him burst into confetti. "Bang," he shouted each time, laughing hysterically. The air grew thick with psychic static. Guilliman's thoughts were invaded by images and parodies of faith, twisted banners of the Aquila grinning, cathedrals turned into comedy clubs. Then the laughter stopped. The Joker turned toward the throne, toward the desiccated body of the Emperor himself. The golden cables that bound his corpse pulsed faintly with light. The Joker's grin softened. "You know," he said quietly, "I've always admired you, the world's greatest straight man, 10,000 years, and you never cracked a smile. That's commitment." He stepped closer, placing a pale hand upon the edge of the throne. "But I think," he whispered, "it's time for your punchline." The Astronomicon flared. Every psyker in the Imperium screamed at once, their minds filled with visions, a dead god opening his eyes. In the darkness of the chamber, the Emperor's withered lips trembled, and then, impossibly, they moved. A sound escaped, dry, cracked, but unmistakable. He laughed. It wasn't cruel or joyful. It was the laugh of something ancient, broken, and finally free. The sound tore through the palace like a storm. Custodians dropped to their knees, clutching their helmets as blood poured from their ears. Guilliman fell backward, his mind reeling as the Emperor's psychic presence filled the hall, not the cold fire of divinity, but something human, chaotic, and mad. The Joker clapped his hands together, delighted. "See, I knew he had it in him," he said. "Oh, you're beautiful when you laugh, big guy." But the laughter didn't stop. It grew louder, deeper, vibrating through the marble, through the planet itself. The Astronomicon pulsed wildly, sending psychic shockwaves through the galaxy. Across the stars, navigators wept as the light that guided them flickered into something grotesque, a beacon of smiling faces and carnival music echoing across the void. On countless worlds, statues of the Emperor split at the mouth, stone cracking into mock grins. Choirs of astropaths went mad, laughing uncontrollably as they broadcast nonsense across the galaxy. The light of humanity's god had turned into the universe's greatest joke. Guilliman crawled toward the throne, voice breaking. "Father, please stop this." The Emperor's laughter slowed, shifting into something like a whisper. His eyes, blazing suns of psychic energy, opened fully. For a heartbeat, the galaxy itself seemed to look through them. His voice echoed, carried on the winds of the warp. "Son, it's funny because it was never supposed to work." And with that, he smiled. The Joker bowed, arms wide, tears of joy streaming down his painted face. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Emperor of mankind." The throne cracked. Reality itself groaned as golden light burst outward, half divine, half comic. The warp screamed, demons howled, stars flickered. Across the cosmos, laughter and horror merged into one sound, the song of a dying galaxy, realizing it had become its own parody. And as the world trembled, Gilliman looked up through tears and horror at the two figures before him, the clown and the god, both laughing together. The light that burst from Terra could be seen across half the galaxy. It wasn't the usual golden flare of the Emperor's psychic beacon. It was something different, unstable, alive. A storm of color rippled through the warp, warping everything it touched. Red twisted into violet, blue bled into green. The laughter that had begun in one chamber now echoed through the void itself. It was the sound of madness given shape. In the segmentum solar, entire fleets halted as the Astronomicon became impossible to read. Navigators clawed at their faces, screaming that the light was smiling at them. Ships that tried to follow its signal found themselves circling endlessly, trapped in currents of psychic distortion. Astropaths wept as voices filled their minds, voices that spoke in riddles, in punchlines, in half-remembered jokes. "Knock, knock," they whispered across the stars. "Who's there?" No one wanted to know the answer. In the warp, the Chaos Gods watched, and for the first time they were silent. Khorne's rage faltered. Nurgle's laughter died in his throat. Tzeentch stared into the maelstrom of color, unable to predict its flow. Even Slaanesh, born of excess and sensation, shivered in uneasy fascination. Something had entered their realm that did not obey their rules, something that mocked the very foundation of their power. The Joker wasn't a new god, he was something worse, a parasite feeding on meaning itself. He stood now beside the Emperor's throne, or what was left of it. The Golden Palace had become a ruin of light and shadow, its walls breathing, its banners twitching like living things. The custodians were gone, their golden armor scattered like toys. Gilliman knelt amid the wreckage, his eyes hollow. Around him, the air shimmered with psychic distortion, a kaleidoscope of impossible colors. The Joker leaned against a cracked column, tossing one of the custodians' helmets in his hand. "Well, Robbie," he said casually, "I think we can call that a success. Your dad's finally in on the joke." Gilliman looked up at him, his voice raw. "You've damned humanity." The Joker's grin widened. "Oh, come on, you were already damned. I just gave it personality." He dropped the helmet. It hit the ground and split open, and instead of metal, confetti poured out. Gilliman's breath caught as he stared at the nonsense unfolding before him. The palace was dissolving into theater curtains. Statues melted into papier-mâché. The sky itself cracked, revealing a painted backdrop of stars. "This isn't real," Gilliman whispered. "Oh, now you're catching on," the Joker laughed, spinning in place. "That's the trick, Blue Boy. It was never real. Not your gods, not your crusades, not your wars. You built a universe on the idea that meaning mattered. But guess what? The punchline is it does." The Emperor stirred again, his golden armor glowing faintly in the distortion. His eyes were open now, twin suns burning with both sanity and insanity. When he spoke, his voice shook the ground. "You have unmade the order of existence," he said. "You are a cancer upon creation." The Joker bowed. "Why, thank you, Your Holiness, but if you think about it," he leaned closer to the throne, grin stretching impossibly wide. "You started it. You told everyone the universe had meaning, that there was a plan, that you were the punchline. All I did was finish the joke." A wave of psychic laughter rippled outward. Entire sectors fell silent as their minds broke. Planets became carnivals of madness, cities painted in bright colors, people dancing in hysterical joy before collapsing into nothing. The warp leaked into real space, not as fire or plague, but as absurdity. Rivers flowed backward. Suns blinked like eyes. Demons wore crowns of balloons and sang hymns to the holy laugh. And at the center of it all, the throne. The Emperor rose from it, light spilling from his body like molten gold. The cables and machinery that had kept him alive snapped away, sizzling into smoke. For the first time in 10,000 years, he stood unaided. The Joker clapped, grinning wildly. "That's my guy. Look at you, finally off the chair. Took long enough." The Emperor looked down at him, and for a moment he smiled. "You are not chaos," he said softly. "You are the reflection of it. You are the human soul without restraint." "Exactly," the Joker spread his arms. "I'm your masterpiece, Pops, your legacy. You built an empire on order, and all I did was remind everyone that order's the biggest joke of all. Golden lightning surged between them, warp and reality collided. The Emperor raised his hand, not in rage, but in resignation. Then the joke ends with us. Oh, I love that, the Joker whispered. Tragic, poetic, I'll allow it. They collided. The explosion that followed was not light or sound, but laughter, a sound that bent time itself. The galaxy shuddered as reality tore open, revealing infinite versions of itself, each one different, each one absurd. In one, the Emperor sat upon his throne made of rubber ducks. In another, the Joker ruled as the God Emperor of pranks, his legions armed with whoopee cushions and plasma rifles that fired bang flags. And in one, perhaps the real one, everything simply stopped. Silence. Terra was gone, the throne was gone, the warp was calm. In the void that remained, a single card floated, the Joker's face, smiling. It drifted through the stars, carried by the last current of psychic wind. Somewhere, faintly, a voice whispered, "Why so serious?" And far beyond the ruins of time and space, on a quiet, forgotten world, a lone guardsman sat beside a dying campfire. He didn't know why he was smiling. He just knew that, for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid. The stars above him flickered, one of them shaped almost like a grin. He laughed softly, the sound echoing into the endless dark. Because maybe, after all, the universe had always been a joke. And maybe that was the funniest thing of all.